"Please don't stop," Matilda said. "You haven't finished yet. How did you manage to get away from her in the end and come to live in this funny little house?"
"Ah, that was something," Miss Honey said. "I was proud of that."
"Tell me," Matilda said. "Well," Miss Honey said, "when I got my teacher's job, the aunt told me I owed her a lot of money. I asked her why. She said, 'Because I've been feeding you all these years and buying your shoes and your clothes.' She told me it added up to thousands, and I had to pay her back by giving her my salary for the next 10 years. 'I'll give you £1 a week pocket money,' she said, 'but that's all you're going to get.' She even arranged with the school authorities to have my salary paid directly into her own bank. She made me sign the paper." "You shouldn't have done that," Matilda said. "Your salary was your chance of freedom." I know," Miss Honey said. "But by then I'd been her slave nearly all my life, and I hadn't the courage or the guts to say no. I was still petrified of her. She could still hurt me badly." "So how did you manage to escape?" Matilda asked.
"Ah," Miss Honey said, smiling for the first time, "that was 2 years ago. It was my greatest triumph."
"Please tell me," Matilda said. "I used to get up very early and go for walks while my aunt was still asleep," Miss Honey said. "And one day I came across this tiny cottage. It was empty. I found out who owned it. It was a farmer. I went to see him. Farmers also get up very early. He was milking his cows. I asked him if I could rent his cottage. 'You can't live there,' he cried. 'It's got no conveniences, no running water, no nothing.' 'I want to live there,' I said. 'I'm a romantic. I've fallen in love with it. Please rent it to me.' 'You're mad,' he said, 'but if you insist, you're welcome to it. The rent will be 10 pence a week.' 'Here's 1 month's rent in advance,' I said, giving him 40 pence. 'And thank you so much.'" "How super!" Matilda cried. "So suddenly you had a house all of your own. But how did you pluck up the courage to tell the aunt?" "That was tough," Miss Honey said, "but I steeled myself to do it. One night, after I'd cooked her supper, I went upstairs and packed the few things I possessed in a cardboard box and came downstairs and announced I was leaving. 'I've rented a house,' I said." My aunt exploded. "Rented a house?" she shouted. "How can you rent a house when you have only £1 a week in the world?" "I've done it," I said. "And how are you going to buy food for yourself?" "I'll manage," I mumbled, and rushed out of the front door. "Oh, well done you!" Matilda cried. "So you were free at last." "I was free at last," Miss Honey said. "I can't tell you how wonderful it was." "But have you really managed to live here on £1 a week for 2 years?" Matilda asked. "I most certainly have," Miss Honey said. "I pay 10 pence rent, and the rest just about buys me paraffin for my stove and for my lamp, and a little milk and tea and bread and margarine. That's all I really need. As I told you, I have a jolly good tuck-in at the school lunch."